country full of Soviet architecture and history. It's also Europe's longest-running dictatorship, and in recent times, with its support for Russia's war in Ukraine, has become extremely difficult to visit. This is the story of my journey to Belarus in the summer of 2024, just before my fateful trip to Russia. It's also the story of what happened when I first visited Belarus in 2020, a story I didn't feel comfortable sharing until now. Good morning from the Polish countryside. I'm on a bus journey to a country that has been closed to the West for 4 years now. I'm about to go to Belarus. Literally everyone getting onto this bus is Belarusian, except for me. You cannot fly to Belarus. I think you can, but it's extremely expensive. As an American, the only way I can get to Belarus is currently over a land border. And to cross the land border, I can't do it by foot. I have to take a bus. So, taking this old Belarusian bus to go there. So over here you have a bus going to Kiev, Ukraine. Here is a bus going to Brest in Belarus. Little seat right here. The bus isn't full. I'd say it's only about half full. Apparently we're coming up on the border right now. Alright, back on the bus now. Just cleared the Polish customs check. Apparently it's so uncommon for Americans to go through that border check that the Polish border lady started speaking to me in Russian and asking, "Where's your other passport?" So that's the Belarusian border right over there. And we've just been sitting here for like 20, 30 minutes. No good reason. In no AC. As you see the moisture gathering on the window here. Lovely experience. To enter Belarus as an American, there's realistically only one way. You must attain a visa in advance, and then cross the land border from Poland or Lithuania, maybe Latvia too. Technically, you can fly to Minsk from the Middle East, but you end up spending $1,000 to do it. And anyway, I was in the middle of attempting a trip across Eurasia by land. No flying between countries. I was in Poland, so I decided to enter from the Polish border. When I was in Germany, I spent an entire week trying to get the visa. It's extremely strict. They only gave me a visa for as long as the number of hotel nights that I booked. And they would check that you actually paid. You can't use one of those fake ticket websites. So I ended up with just a 4-day visa. Now they told me that to cross the land border, it would take 8 hours. And you wonder, how could that be possible? How many people are actually visiting Belarus? But once you arrive at the border, you know exactly why. The Belarusian authorities check everyone thoroughly. And if you're a foreigner, especially if you're from the EU or America, you're checked doubly thoroughly. I was made to wait for hours before I was finally sat down with an officer. The officer asked me a series of questions in English that all had to do with Ukraine. Have you been to Ukraine? Do you have friends in Ukraine? What do you think about the special military operation? Then, finally, the officer asked me to open the hidden photos folder on my iPhone, which obviously contains nothing but cute kitten pictures. I point blank told the officer, "This is not going to be fun for either of us." And he point blank responded, "I know." With a sad look on his face, he said, "This is my job." So I gave him the phone and awkwardly watched him look at kittens. Then he gave back the phone and the interview was over. Another hour later, after everyone had been thoroughly checked, we were allowed back on the bus. I had been granted access to enter Belarus. Okay. 3 hours later, finally past the border. So the one good thing about crossing that border from Poland into Belarus is that once you finally get to the other side, you're immediately in a big city by Belarusian standards. We are now in the city of Brest. Another Brest. We already saw the Brest of France. Turns out there's 2 Brests in Europe. And we're gonna get our hands on both of them. All right, let's go. So actually, to get a visa for Belarus, I had to submit a hotel reservation in Minsk, and it had to be a real hotel reservation. I couldn't make a fake one. They wanted me to call the hotel, submit a letter and everything. So I have a hotel waiting for me in Minsk, but I'm kind of thinking, since the hotels in Belarus are super cheap, I might just stay in Brest for the night. The Bug Hotel. I don't think I've ever heard a more appealing name for a hotel. Do you get many Americans at your hotel? No, not many? Oh, wow. Lucky me. Alright, so got a nice little throwback hotel room right here. Single bed. This hotel room costs $30. $30 hotel room in Europe. Can't imagine that's gonna last much longer, but in Belarus, it's a bit like going back in time. Nice. Even get a little refrigerator. It's a fun little gaudy hotel. I don't know why this chair is here. To admire all these weird portraits hanging up here. All right, we are in Belarus. Holy shit, this is not a place I'm supposed to be. All right, so there's this cool fortress thing called the Brest Fortress. It's about a 30-minute walk. But this is nice looking, isn't it? You know? Belarus and Belarusians are famous for being very clean. It's in the culture. Belarus is probably the cleanest country in Europe. In total, that journey from Warsaw over here took 7 hours. And didn't get to stop for food the entire time. So I'm ready to eat whatever appears before me. Apparently, the first option is hot dogs. Belarus is a little bit of a gray area between the West and Russia. As you can see, you still have the Western brands here. They haven't been cut off from the financial system like Russia was, so I can still use my credit card here. Got ourselves a hot dog. You gotta be honest, it's not the greatest hot dog I've ever had, but I'm currently starving, so. So just behind those trees, behind this fence, past a river, is Poland. And there are many, many people from Belarus that live in Poland, especially in Warsaw. You can imagine, not too long ago, you know, they would very easily go back and forth. But I want to forget about the politics for a little bit. You know, let's focus on exploring the country. I've been here once before. I know Belarus is a country of good people. And they didn't choose what's going on. Крепость? Где крепость?
Там.
Там?
Yeah.
Okay, спасибо. My Russian is not good, but hopefully over the next few weeks it'll get better. There you go, Russian license plate. Извините, что это?
Брестская крепость.
Окей, спасибо.
Вход. Go. Брестская крепость.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Музей left.
Okay. English very good. Спасибо.
Пожалуйста.
Bye-bye. There we go. But look at how fucking epic looking that building is. Don't tell me it wasn't worth it coming to Belarus. Actually, I don't think this is even like a museum or anything. It's just like an entrance. So this building behind these walls are tombs dedicated to the soldiers that fought in World War II against the Nazis. The Soviets love to create super epic looking monuments and buildings to commemorate all the struggles they went through in World War II. And to be fair, it's definitely the coolest thing they did. So, some real World War II era Soviet tanks right here. Belarus is just so over the top with this stuff that it's awesome. It becomes unironically awesome. Look at this shit over here, man. Give me this over the Eiffel Tower any day. This is awesome. So that is all of the Russian soldiers, Soviet soldiers, because many Belarusians died fighting. In fact, they took the brunt of the fighting. These are all memorials to the different cities: Moscow, Volgograd, and then interestingly, Kiev in Ukraine, Minsk, capital of Belarus, Odessa in Ukraine, Sevastopol. Where's Sevastopol? Smolensk. It's just over the border in Russia. We might go there. How much of a different significance all of this now takes on with what's going on today. Right up here it says CCCP. That was the Soviet Union, the Communist Party. That is a ridiculously large pillar. Like, it's way, way higher than the Washington Monument, just to give you some scale. Извините, это русский язык или белорусский?
Русский.
Русский, oh, okay. Okay, Russian. This whole complex is very not international tourist friendly. This, I believe, is one of the buildings that was here when the Nazis were pulling through. It still stood, it remained standing. Doesn't matter what you feel about the Soviet Union, this is just a cool ass monument. Whoa, now this definitely is not Belarus. I think we just went in the wormhole again. Let's see, beautiful Buddhist temple. I think I hear a call to prayer over there in the distance. Ah, we're back in Indonesia. Wonderful. This is one of those countries that everybody needs to visit at least once. And I'm not talking about just Bali. But Bali's nice too. There's a reason that digital nomads come here from all over the world to build their websites, build their apps. And you know what? If you're one of those digital nomads, if you want to build a website, today's sponsor, Odoo, can help you with that. Odoo allows you to create a website with a lifetime free app, with unlimited hosting and support. And it's very easy to use. You don't have to know how to code. You don't have to be a programmer. Salamat sore. All you gotta do is just pick the feature that you want to use and just drag and drop. Nothing too complicated. Anybody can do it. And even if you're out of ideas, ChatGPT will help you to come up with ideas for you. It'll generate, rephrase, and translate text according to your needs. If you're trying to build a brand, a website is very important, and Odoo can help you with that. Just go to www.odoo.com. It's free. Try it out today. All right, we got to get back in the wormhole and actually go back in time. Go back to Belarus. See you there. By the way, there's like no entrance fee or demands for a donation or anything to walk around this giant complex. And again, if there were no borders in place, you literally could walk to Poland from here. You'd be there in about 10 minutes. The only buildings here that look relatively new are these churches, the Orthodox churches. That one and then that one over there, which is very impressive looking. But during the Soviet times, obviously they outlawed religion. The official state policy was everyone should be atheist. Of course, after the Soviet Union fell, there was a huge rebound effect. Russia became even more Christian. Places like Dagestan, Chechnya, Azerbaijan, they became even more Muslim. I think that says something about the human condition. I do feel that religion is a necessary part of life. So yeah, back at the restaurant at my hotel, and this is the only food they had. This is borscht. I have some hazy memory from the last time I was here, where I think you take this and then you mix it, like you mix it together, something like that. Yeah, that's better actually. Kind of looks like vomit now, but it definitely tastes better. All right, finished that. By the way, the story of when I was last here in Belarus is pretty wild. I'll tell you about that tomorrow when we go to Minsk. What's all that music? There we go. It's getting a little too Soviet in there for me. Sovietness was too intense. Belarus is like by far the most foreign country to visit in Europe now. This is a trip. Oh, and by the way, that meal plus a drink was $3. $3 in 2024 in Europe. That's actually cheaper than like Thailand and Southeast Asia, which is insane. Belarus. Ah, shit. Turns out there were bed bugs in the bug hotel. No. Alright, I gotta go buy a train ticket. Apparently this is what the sky looks like in Belarus all the time. I kinda like it though, you know? I mean, Ireland is the same way. It speaks to my soul. Pretty much all of the electronics here are from China. Chinese products. Xiaomi. That is also Chinese. That is not a Switch. Chinese memory cards. This is super Chinese. That's if you're trying to get ready for the KTV. Oh, I'm an idiot. This is the bus station. I gotta go over there to get to the train station. Yep. One of those must be the Minsk Express.
Соблюдение элементарных правил. Не входите в воду в трезвом состоянии. Не заплывайте в воду в неизвестных местах.
This doesn't feel like a real country. This is actually the list of trains. Ooh, there's a train that goes all the way to Moscow. I think that's the only international destination. Доброе утро. Поезд на Минск.
Ближайший поезд в 14:12 отправляется, 18:24 будете в Минске. 9-й плацкартный вагон, 52-е место. Пожалуйста.
Okay, спасибо. There you go. There's my Belarus train ticket. $5 to go across the country. Have to walk all the way down to the first car, from the end to the front. Здравствуйте. Это здесь?
Здесь. Сюда. 52 место, верхняя полочка, до Минска. Билет заберу после отправления. Хорошей дороги. Проходите.
Dude, that's wild. For $5, actually get a bed and a table down here. Wow. How? Спасибо большое. Есть еда?
Еда?
Еда. Окей. Что?
Пошлите, покажу. Есть еще салаты. Есть еще...
Okay. Okay, это.
Вот это, да?
Alright, so this was $1.50 for everything. These are like mussels or something, I don't know. It's actually pretty good. I don't know why the coffee is in like this container thing, but it looks cool. It's actually more like the Turkish coffee we had in Berlin. Эти поезд едет в Oh, okay. Oh, wow, okay. So this train is going all the way to St. Petersburg, apparently. That's got to be like a 10 to 15-hour journey. Just got off. It was a long line to get back on. That was a very interesting train ride. Definitely a very Soviet train ride. I've come to the conclusion that the entire country of Belarus is like a giant museum. Boom! First thing I see over there is a KFC. America's still here. So I've just called a ride on the Russian version of Uber, and the price is 10 Belarusian rubles. 10 Belarusian rubles is less than $3. Have I emphasized enough at this point how cheap Belarus is? This is wild. So the hotel that I had to convince to write me a letter to get a visa to come to Belarus is somewhere around here. Don't know where exactly, but here are the flags of all the guests coming to the hotel. You have China, Venezuela, Russia, of course. No American flag?
No, but guests, yes.
Okay. Oh, there's Britain. It's hiding behind there. So this is the room. Bit of an upgrade, but that's because I showed up here and because I arrived a day late, they told me they just gave my original room to somebody else. They canceled the reservation. Granted, they were polite about it. I was refunded, but they told me if you want to stay at this hotel, and there's not many hotels in Minsk now, you gotta upgrade to the deluxe room. So here I am in the deluxe Minsk hotel at the Imperial Palace. This is the biggest bathroom I've had in a while. We've got a bathrobe. For some reason, there's a beauty salon right across the hall from me. Wait, what? There's a strip club in my hotel? All right, so here we are on the streets of Minsk, the capital of Belarus, a place that I've actually been to before. And once again, it's extremely, extremely Soviet. I haven't been to Russia, but my understanding is this is literally the most Soviet place you can come to if you want to see. If you want to enjoy Soviet Union history and architecture, or just a very centrally planned city, this is the place to come. And there you have a giant flag of China. Oh, so apparently the premier of China, Li Qiang, is in town for the 22nd and 23rd of August. That would explain that. China is very, very important to the economy of Belarus. So they're really laying out the red carpet for them, or the red flag in this case. And then right next to that is a giant statue of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Without this man standing behind me, none of this would exist. The Soviet Union would have never existed. Communism would have never really taken off as it did. I was told that huge building over there in the distance, that was built by a Belarusian billionaire who is now in prison. I feel like most of these ads aren't even for products. They're just for people that work for the government or heroes of Belarus. I'm not really sure. You guys speak English?
Yes.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Gambia.
Gambia? Okay. Are you like students here? Yeah. Oh, okay. That's like, what are you studying?
Huh?
What are you studying?
We study in Russian language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You came over to study Russian in Belarus?
Yes.
You can find both African and Chinese students walking around, and they may be some of the only foreigners you'll find in Belarus. Otherwise, this is a very not diverse country. I really want to ask people here some questions about life and how everything is going. It's just my Russian is intermediate at best. Really need to find like a translator or a girlfriend or something. Help.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, that's great. All right. Do you think life in Belarus is affordable? Нет? Почему?
Потому что у нас маленькие зарплаты.
А сколько бы вам хотелось иметь в месяц?
Ну, в месяц, ну, только чтобы минимальные свои потребности закрывать, это $1000. Вот, это минимум.
What is the minimum salary in
Самая
Belarus?
маленькая, ну, точнее, да, маленькая зарплата самая какая в Беларуси, как вы считаете?
Ну, я знаю, что вообще зарплаты в Минске предлагаются от 600 рублей. 600 рублей это сколько? $200.
$200.
Ну, как бы реальные предложения, там от 500 даже рублей я видела.
Да, вы когда-нибудь хотели уехать из Беларуси
Я
куда-нибудь?
мечтаю отсюда уехать.
А куда, если не секрет?
Ну, вообще, как бы мне хотелось бы жить в теплой стране возле моря. Наверное, Италия.
Italia.
Да.
Ah, okay. Italia, yeah.
То есть
It's,
столица моды.
Where are you from?
America. Oh, you speak English. Nice.
From America?
Yeah.
From what town?
New York.
New York?
Yeah.
Oh. I am from Kiev.
Oh, nice.
I am Ukrainian refugee.
Oh, wow.
All countries I liked. I am Russian.
You're Russian.
I am Russian. And I am a personal enemy of our President Zelensky.
Okay.
Because
Почему?
Zelensky guess that I am criminal element.
Okay. For being Russian?
Because I love my country of born, Russia. My flag expropriate
Really?
because I love my country of born, Russia.
Okay. Have you traveled abroad?
No.
Not yet. Okay.
Actually, right now I'm looking for the flight to Vietnam. So basically, it will be my first travel.
That's a good location. The Belarusians need a visa for that.
No, for China and for Vietnam, you don't. I think here it's more calm, it's more safe. I have a friend, he's from Germany. He also lived in America. He studied there, and he said that Belarus it's one of the best countries that he ever experienced. So
I mean, it's very
Yeah.
clean, very safe.
yeah, you can buy vegetables, fruits, berries for free. In Europe, you don't have this. The percent of people that are drug addicts here, it's more low. Yeah, no homeless people around here. Maybe you will see it once in a week somewhere deep inside city, but here it's okay. I have a lot of friends. They live in Poland. They are studying here, studying there, and they enjoy Poland. Poland is nice, but I would prefer Belarus.
I think I'm gonna call it here for today and not burn myself out. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Пока. All right, Dobry dien from Minsk, and we are here at the Victory Monument, arguably the most important monument in the city, and of course, it is dedicated to defeating the Nazis in World War II. This is the eternal flame, must always be lit to remember the sacrifices made by the comrades. Hi. Hey, hao. Let me out. There's some Chinese tourists, or maybe they're working here, I have no idea. And I'm now realizing that at every single World War II monument, they seem to list all the cities that fought against the Nazis. You know, Smolensk in Russia, Brestskaya Krepust. That's actually where we just were, in Brest. Belarus was overrun and actually fully conquered by the Nazis during World War II. And the Nazis held and controlled it for 3 years, similar to places like France and the Netherlands. So this is talking about the partisans, the people who rose up, a bit like the French resistance in France. So all along Independence Avenue, you find giant epic buildings and squares like this. And yet there's so few people. It just makes you feel even more grand. I feel like none of this has changed in 4 years. Which would make sense. Ironically, Belarus has retained more Soviet Union characteristics than even Russia. There are price controls, rent controls. That's the reason why prices are so low. It's still a relatively controlled economy. I think I just found something that changed. This is mac.by. Is this what I think it is? So yeah, just like how in Russia all the McDonald's were shut down or actually bought out, same thing happened here in Belarus. Except it's a different company, different name. And now you have the Belarus flag, very proudly displayed outside. Let's go and do a taste test. Why not? I guess this is supposed to be like a Big Mac meal right here. Well, at the very least, it's cheaper than in America, but this is still, I think, a little bit expensive by Belarusian standards. That's like $5. Это раньше было McDonald's. There we go. Confirmed it. Well, that tastes the same, at least. Those also more or less taste the same. I mean, the place even smells the same, you know? Just smells like a place that fills you with regret for coming in. I had a lot of corks. Even here in the underground shopping mall, they have heroes of World War II. The heroes who fought the Nazis. I feel like every building surrounding my hotel is a government building. This is the Ministry of Economy of Belarus. Very important. There's a lot of managing of the economy that goes on here. So the Victory Monument sits right in the middle of Independence Avenue, the most important street in Minsk, which goes right through the heart of the city. As you can see, it's a huge Soviet-style boulevard, similar to the huge boulevards you'll see in China as well. They love that kind of stuff. Is that the one? I think so. right in this building right here. That's where I stayed 4 years ago. The last time I was in Belarus. I had like an Airbnb in there. It's like a very Soviet style apartment. I had to walk up like 5 sets of stairs. And as you can see, from those windows up there, you have a clear view of the entire avenue. And we're on the other side of the street. Let me tell you the story of the last time I was here. The year was 2020. I'm sure you all remember. The year of the pandemic. And me, being from New York, was not allowed to travel to many places. In fact, the only countries that were open to Americans at that time were Mexico, Tanzania, and, can you guess the third one? Belarus. Back then, you could actually just fly straight into Minsk and instantly get 30 days, no visa required. This was open to all Americans, Europeans. Belarus wanted tourists. And you could still book an Airbnb. Nowadays, Airbnb is gone. There's no more listings. But one of those listings was in this building right over here. The only problem was that I flew into Belarus at a bit of a sensitive time. This was September 2020, and there were some pretty major protests kicking off. And I actually had a full view of everything from my window up there. I saw people marching, I saw people arrested, I saw people disappear. The Belarusian protests of 2020 were the largest protests in the nation's history, and at the time, they seemed like they might actually topple the government. They were triggered by the presidential election of 2020, in which Alexander Lukashenko won 80% of the vote, the same number that he wins, for some reason, in every election. At the time, the Belarusian government actually claimed the protests were fueled by both America and Russia. Things are strange in Belarus. A brutal crackdown followed, and the EU stopped all flights to the country. But when I arrived in Minsk in 2020, I knew nothing about this. I was just looking for somewhere to escape to for a month during the global COVID restrictions. I wasn't a YouTuber yet. I knew very little about Belarus, Russia, or the Soviet Union and their history. I could speak only very basic Russian. But from my apartment on Independence Avenue, it's like I had a front row seat to the protests. I didn't know that at the time. They passed right by my window, and the inevitable arrest also happened right outside my window. I was in Minsk for a month, and I walked around the city, knowing about the significance of the protest and, honestly, tacitly supporting, but mostly oblivious to when and where they were happening. That is, until one weekend in late September, when I was walking down a shopping street in central Minsk. I had seen protests before going down the main avenue, but I didn't know where they ended up that afternoon. On that street, it was quiet. Extremely quiet. Then, out of nowhere, I turned around, saw people running in my direction. People running out of pure fear. Obviously, the police were coming, and I suddenly realized that if I stayed on that street, I was screwed. Who knew what would happen to me as a foreigner caught in the protests? And so I ran too. I was scared shitless. Everything was closed. And I ran until I finally found a little restaurant that was still open. I ran in, I sat down at a table, and I used my beginner level Russian to tell them that I just wanted to hide there for a bit. They understood. I sat there for a few hours, and they just gave me free drinks. They never asked me to buy anything. And it's at that point I realized something about the countries of the former Soviet Union. Even if you weren't actively involved in politics, it was that easy to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, where things could quickly spiral into something far worse, as they did 5 years later in Russia. I've finally learned that lesson now. And I still love the people of both Belarus and Russia. I love the unique vibes of Belarus, so different from the rest of Europe. I love the friendliness towards strangers in both nations, something that most foreigners aren't aware of. I can't go back now, but I hope someday the Belarusians can have that country that they wanted. All right, good morning. Dobro utro. It is time to leave Minsk. It is time to leave my fancy Soviet hotel that has a strip club on the 5th floor. This has just been the most random hotel ever. There's like a beauty salon here. There's like a shop on another floor. And then there's this strip club on the 5th floor. And there's just like, they're not hiding that at all. You just go up to the 5th floor and then boom, you're in a strip club. Belarus Hotel. When I woke up that day, on the last day of my visa, I assumed I'd be able to take a train or bus to Russia, which was my next destination on my Eurasia trip. This was before I ever went there for the first time. I assumed wrong. Foreigners, at least then, could not cross between Belarus and Russia. So I had to suddenly change plans and take a bus to Lithuania or Latvia. But all the buses were sold out. And so, I had just 12 hours to find some way out of the country. After finding a taxi, paying almost $100 to get to the closest town near the border with Lithuania, I finally managed to basically get smuggled onto a bus. Had to overpay just for this bus as well, but at least when you're overpaying in Belarus, it's not that much. 60 euros. 60 euros for this 30-minute bus ride. So, this is a bit of an unexpected end to this video. I was hoping to cross through Belarus and get to another even more controversial country, but it turns out if you are American or from the EU, you only have one way back out of Belarus, and that's going through Poland or Lithuania. So we're currently on the Lithuanian border, and it's been a journey just to get here. That is the actual border down there, and what happens is you have to cross in a bus. The buses have their own special lane to go over the border, but because the Belarusian officials go through such a thorough check of everybody, there's like a big lineup, so sometimes this can take hours. Here's a little coffee shop. Maybe I can get some food. One last Belarusian meal, some sausages, and macaroni. That's what they call it. Crossing through customs once again, this time in reverse. This just takes so long. Every single person. I don't know what they're doing with them, but they're running a check on them and it takes a really long time.
И этот, и там еще младшенький.
Все мои пацаны приперлись. Ура, привет.
So this may look like we just arrived, but no. We're past the Belarusian point, and now we're waiting to go through the Lithuanian customs check. And on the Lithuanian side, they're very worried about illegal migrants going through, so that's going to be intense too. I've already spent 4 hours in this border area. Lots of fun. And then here you have the massive vodka section. And just look at these prices. 150 euros to get the Brest vodka. The best of Brest. You have Tumani, Carnarvon. I've never seen such a large variety of vodka. You got Chacha. I'd love to buy a bottle of Chacha. You can see the EU sign. Lithuania is just up there. So close. Yet potentially still hours away. Alright, it's now 10 p.m. and finally going in to check passports on the Lithuanian side. I'm slowly losing my mind.
Спасибо, что без аварий.
This endless trip is finally over. We're in Lithuania. Alright, so we're not in Belarus anymore. We're in Lithuania, where you could still find $30 hotels, but it's going to be a hostel. Wild the differences when you consider that Lithuania also used to be part of the Soviet Union. But unlike Belarus, Lithuania has erased almost all traces of its former Soviet past. You can see for Lithuania, they've retained more of their medieval European core, as opposed to Belarus, kind of just knocked down most of the medieval stuff, threw up the Soviet buildings, trying to create equality for all. Didn't quite work out. Maybe in some ways it did. But Lithuania, I guess in the end, looks more like the rest of Europe. Here's a little flower shop in here. But interestingly, they have these little trinkets that they're also selling. Little markers, magnets that are for Ukraine, so Slava Ukraini. But then you also have like these little hearts right here. These white and red hearts, considered by many to be the true flag of Belarus.
€1.
Доброе утро.
Доброе. Ну,
Это мне нравится.
ну, это балтийский.
Вы из Литвы или русский?
Я из Литвосмес. Я из Литвы. И по-русски, и по-польски, и по-инглишу разными языками.
Okay.
Из Deutschland. Из Deutsch sprechen Sie nicht so viel.
Español?
Español.
Français?
Oh, gracias.
Okay. Chinese? Ni hao?
Yeah.
Okay.
Хотя.
Спасибо. Bonjour. Bye-bye. There you go. Bit of the only remaining Soviet influence you could find in Lithuania. She was, I believe, a Russian Lithuanian. And you know, that's the thing. History didn't begin and end with the Soviets. In fact, Lithuania and Belarus and even Poland were actually already in the same country before. It was called the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And the Poles and the Lithuanians, I mean, they were the strongest of that pact. The Belarusians were kind of just along for the ride. But there you go. That is why these three places each have a distinct identity. Each have their own language that they're all very proud of.
Ми вільні. Насправді, єдині, хто нас може перемогти, це ми самі. Наш розбрат, наші сварки, наші незгоди. Це найстрашніший ворог.
All right. I busted all the way up to Estonia. Here's some footage of me going through the forest of Latvia. I technically crossed 3 Baltic countries in one day. Now I'm in one of the more Soviet-looking parts of Estonia, of which there aren't many left. But I think this is finally the end of our journey and the end of this video. I don't know if it fully turned out the way I liked. You know, when I was in Belarus, I was just so stressed about not overstaying the visa, getting into trouble. I didn't know what to ask people. People were tense, you know, like I didn't want to get people in trouble. They were worried about what they could say. But one thing that was true was that people that live in Belarus really do like Belarus. And I think if you traveled to Belarus, you would like Belarus too. It's obviously with some issues, but It's become such a unique place in the world, a time capsule back to the times of the Soviet Union. People are sharing with each other. It's very cheap. You could buy an apartment there for just $60,000, right in the heart of Minsk. Not many places in Europe where you could do that. So I liked it. And I liked it when I was there 4 years ago, and I flew over there. Just, it's one of the few places Americans could have traveled to in the world. And I had a good time. And then not long after that trip, everything kind of went to shit. Then the war in Ukraine started, and things got even more ridiculous. And on a sentimental level, Belarus was actually the first place where I seriously considered becoming a YouTuber, doing what I'm doing right now. And it is still unbelievable that I'm doing this. And there's hundreds of thousands of you watching these videos. I don't ever forget that. I wish I could have spent a lot more time in Belarus. There was a lot more I wanted to see. It feels kind of incomplete. But that said, kind of got my mind focused on a much bigger trip right now. There's Russia. Across that river.